The evening had drawn its dark curtain over the streets, painting the neighborhood in the soft glow of orange and yellow porch lights. Children, once rampant in their quest for sweets, had dwindled in numbers. I sat in my living room wrapping up my work on the laptop. I realized it was probably time to extinguish the jack-o'-lantern by the door and turn off the porch light. This signaled the end of my Halloween candy duties. The night had been fun. I had greeted little superheroes, princesses, ghouls, and other demons, all hungry for candy. They had all left with big smiles on their faces. Now the once-filled bowl of sweets sat almost empty on the table by the door. After sending off an email, I stood up, stretching out the kinks in my neck. Making my way to the front door, I glanced out the window and froze. Across the street, illuminated only by the dim glow of a streetlight, was a figure. They stood still, facing my house, their features obscured by a mask. It wasn't one of those commercial store-bought masks. It was crude, unsettling, seemingly handmade from leather and stitched together haphazardly. Chalking it up to a late-night trick-or-treater, or perhaps a teenager trying to get a rise out of me, I turned off the porch light and blew out the candle inside the pumpkin. I retreated to the living room, but my attempt to ignore the weird guy across the street was interrupted by the doorbell. Peering through the peephole, I saw no one. Opening the door confirmed it, empty porch. As I closed the door, my eyes darted back to where the masked figure had been standing. They were no longer across the street. Instead, they were standing in the middle of the road. I locked the door. The unease had now grown to a knot in my stomach. The logic of this situation was unraveling. The person was still too far to have rung my doorbell and returned to their spot in that short time. Trying to regain some semblance of normality, I decided to try to ignore it and head to bed. I turned off the lights, ensuring all blinds were shut. As I made my way upstairs, the doorbell chimed once again. Approaching the window, I looked out. The figure was now closer, standing at my neighbor's driveway. They hadn't rung the bell. There was no time for them to do so and return to their spot. The quiet of the night now felt more oppressive than peaceful, and the figure's silent, unwavering attention promised that the real fear of the night had just begun. My breath became shallow. The figure's closeness was alarming, but their stillness was even more so. It was as if they were playing a perverse game of red light, green light, only moving when I wasn't looking. I double-checked the locks on all doors and windows. Despite being inside my house, I felt exposed. I decided to confront this person. If they were playing some sort of prank, they'd had their fun. Grabbing a flashlight, I flung the door open, aiming to catch them off guard. I ran outside onto the driveway. Yet again, no one was there. Not on my porch, not in my yard, not at the neighbor's driveway. It was as if they had vanished into thin air. Trying to regain control, I called out, "Who's there? This isn't funny anymore." The doorbell rang again. Spinning around, I realized my mistake. I'd left the door open behind me. Panic surged as I rushed to close and lock it, but before I could, I caught sight of the mask. The figure was standing right outside my yard by the garden gate. The leather mask seemed even more grotesque up close, stitched unevenly with large black threads. Backing away, I ran back into the house. It was silent except for the loud thudding of my heart. Each shadow felt menacing, each creak of the wooden floor a potential threat. Once again the doorbell rang, but this time it was followed by a slow, deliberate knocking. Mustering all the courage I had left, I yelled, "Leave, I've called the police." To my surprise, a voice responded.
"Did you enjoy the candies?"
My blood ran cold. The near-empty candy bowl I'd left by the door came to mind. The realization that they might have tampered with the candy meant the neighborhood kids might be in danger. Before I could formulate a plan, the knocking stopped. I could hear something moving discreetly in the backyard. Were they trying to get in the house? Suddenly, the back door creaked open. The stalker had made their move. Without thinking, I rushed to the front door, unlocking it and darting outside. My hope was to circle around and get to a neighbor's house. As I sprinted, the chilling sight of multiple masked figures standing in the yards of various houses met my eyes. They all stood still, watching. Reaching Mrs. Clark's house 2 doors down, I pounded on the door frantically. She opened it, and I quickly explained the situation as she let me in. From her living room window, I looked back at my house. The original stalker stood on my porch, tilting their head as if amused. Beside him, a group of figures wearing similar masks stood, holding their candy bags. The realization hit me. It wasn't just one stalker. It was a group, a twisted game played by some sick individuals. A later police investigation revealed that the group had played similar pranks in neighboring towns, sowing fear for their own amusement. Grateful that it was all a twisted game and not something more sinister, the community banded together, vowing to be more vigilant and ensure the safety of every child and resident during future Halloweens. Though the streets were lined with carved pumpkins and decorations, my house stood noticeably devoid of any Halloween spirit. This year, with the shifting deadline at work, I had no energy left for celebrations. My plans for a Halloween party were canceled, and I had let my guests know earlier on in the week. A car pulled up in front of the house, the door opened, and out stepped a man, about my age, dressed in a casual jacket and jeans. I squinted, trying to place the face. He waved, his smile revealing a hint of familiarity. "Hey, long time no see, it's me, Alex, remember from college?" he called out. The name echoed in my mind, but no clear memories formed. "Yes, of course, how have you been?" My mind desperately trying to access memories of him. "I've been good. I got your invite for the party tonight. Hope I'm not too early," he said, looking around at my house. "That's strange," I muttered. "I had to cancel the party, work stuff. I sent out the notifications. Didn't you get the email?" "I must have missed it. It's a long drive, you know." "Well, since I'm here, mind if I come in? We can catch up just like old times." I hesitated, but his expectant face made me cave. "Sure, come on in." We settled into the living room. "I must admit," he began, "it's been so long some of the memories are a bit hazy. But the good times, they stick, you know?" I nodded, though I was struggling to recall any significant moments we might have shared. As we chatted, I tried to steer the conversation towards shared experiences, hoping for a story or incident that would jog my memory. But most of what Alex shared seemed general, almost as if they were experiences anyone could have had. He then began talking about some of our supposed mutual friends, mentioning names I did know, yet his stories involving them felt fabricated, or at the very least exaggerated. A growing realization started to form. The stories, the names, the memories, they didn't fit. None of it truly matched the time and place of my college days. As the evening wore on, Alex's gaze seemed to fixate on me more than the surroundings. There was an expectancy in his eyes, a hint of something I couldn't quite decipher. The veil of casual reunion started to lift, revealing an uncertainty underneath. Who was this man sitting in my house, and why was he truly here? The tension in the room thickened. "I've always admired houses like yours," he began, glancing at the pictures on the mantel, "so isolated from the neighbors. It feels so private." I swallowed hard. "It's convenient for work. Helps me focus," I replied, trying to sound casual. Alex rose from his seat and started wandering the living room. "Do you live here alone?" he asked, not looking at me. "Yes," I replied, instantly regretting my answer. The weight of being alone in the house with a stranger became too real. Alex suddenly rose from his seat and began inspecting the room with a weird thoroughness. He picked up family photos, stared at them, and then at me, as if comparing or seeking out some hidden resemblance. "There's a certain kind of silence in homes like this," he whispered, more to himself than to me. I had to find a way to end this visit. "Alex, it's late and I have an early day tomorrow. I think you should leave now." For a moment he looked taken aback, but he replied, "Of course, we'll continue this another time." As he walked to the door, I felt an overwhelming urge to put as many barriers between us as possible. As he stepped out, he turned to me, eyes piercing into mine. With the door securely locked, I leaned against it, taking deep breaths. Whoever that man was, whatever his intention, it was clear he wasn't just an old friend, and I feared our paths would cross again. The chill of Halloween nipped at my face as I sat on the porch, watching the neighborhood kids run from house to house, laughing in the dusk. My pumpkin glowed, welcoming trick-or-treaters to the bowl of candies set out. A silhouette approached. It wasn't one of the kids, it was a woman. Her gait was uneasy, almost stumbling. As she got closer, I could see her disheveled hair, wet cheeks, and eyes rimmed red from crying. The dim light did little to flatter her appearance. She lifted her head slightly, revealing more of her face. Her skin was ashen, her lips chapped and cracked. "Please," she began, her voice rasped. "Have you seen a little boy about yay high dressed as a pirate? He's my son. We were trick-or-treating and he vanished." I stood up. "I haven't seen him, but there are many children out tonight. Maybe he's with some friends?" She shook her head. "No, he's only 4. He wouldn't leave my side. I've been looking everywhere. Can I come in?" She kept looking past me into the house. My instinct was to invite her in, offer her a seat, maybe even a warm drink, but something held me back. Maybe it was her odd appearance or the way she kept glancing into the house. "I'm sure he'll turn up soon," I reassured her. She nodded, but her eyes never left the entrance to my house. Her pupils seemed large and oddly dilated. As our conversation continued, she seemed to become more and more agitated. "Did you find him?" she asked, her voice on the edge of panic. "I'm sorry, I didn't, but it's a big neighborhood. He could be anywhere." She looked at me, her eyes searching mine. "Could I come in, just for a minute?" I hesitated, unsure of what to say. Something in my gut told me to be cautious. "I think it's best you stay out here in case he comes back. I can bring you a blanket and some hot tea if you'd like." She seemed disappointed, but agreed. I quickly went inside, locked the door behind me, and fetched a blanket and a thermos filled with hot tea. Handing them to her, I could see a flicker of something in her eyes. It wasn't gratitude, it was impatience, frustration. "I hope you find your son," I said. She nodded, clutching the blanket and thermos, her eyes still fixed on my door. After a brief moment of silence, she spoke again. "You have a lovely home," she said. "Thank you," I replied, my wariness growing. "Do you live here alone?" she prodded, her gaze sweeping over the windows, trying to peer through the curtains. Feeling the weight of her question, my gut screamed at me to not divulge any personal information. "No," I lied, trying to sound as casual as possible. "My husband is inside, he's just taking a nap, and my brother is expected any moment now." She seemed to ponder this for a moment. "I'm sure they would want to help a distressed mother, wouldn't they?" I forced a smile. "Of course they would. But like I said, I think it's best you stay out here. It's easier for your son to find you. And besides, I can keep an eye out from the porch and call out if I see him." She shifted her weight from one foot to another, looking more frustrated. I have this feeling that he might be inside. Maybe he wandered into your house." "That's impossible. I've been here all evening." The woman's expression grew more desperate. "Please, just let me check. I promise I'll leave right after." As much as I wanted to help, my instincts were screaming for caution. "I understand you're worried, but my doors have been locked when I wasn't on the porch. There's no way he could have gotten in. I suggest you check with the other houses, or maybe even ask some of the kids around. They might have seen something." The woman stared for a moment, then suddenly dropped the facade of a worried mother. Her face contorted into an angry sneer. "You people are all the same, never willing to help someone in need." Taken aback, I said, "I'm trying to help, but you need to understand it's not safe to just let strangers in." Suddenly, she lunged towards the door, trying to force it open, but I'd locked it when I went inside. Her actions confirmed my suspicions. She didn't seem to be looking for a child after all. I quickly stepped back, heart racing. "Stay back," I warned, pulling out my phone. "I'm calling the police." The woman glared. She turned and began to retreat, but not before shouting, "You'll regret this." As she disappeared into the darkness, I dialed 911 and informed them of the incident. A patrol car was sent to my neighborhood, and they began searching for the woman. It turned out she was wanted for a series of home invasions in the area, using various tactics to gain entry. She preyed on the kindness of residents, especially during festive occasions when people's guards were down.